Right now at 6, a standoff at a Joplin hotel ends with the arrest of a Southeast Kansas man wanted for attempted murder.
And we've got a warm and very windy day today. We also have the possibility of some thunderstorms. We'll go over all of that with you in the forecast. Get you out the door coming up.
Plus, business slams to a halt after an SUV crashes into an O'Reilly's in Neosho.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Well, good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6 a.m. I'm Elise Snowy.
I'm Chris Warner. It's Friday, March the 14th, and we got a very busy Friday in the weather department today. A lot going on, a lot of things changing, very windy. And that's the thing we really want to emphasize is the winds. They're already beginning to increase. They will continue to do so through the morning, and these wind gusts could be damaging on their own.
Yes.
And then we have thunderstorm chances on top of all of that. Let's start, though, with a look outside, downtown Pittsburgh. Now, we're going to kind of go through this information with you quickly. We just want to get you out the door this morning, but we also want you to stick around. We're going to break down everything we've got going on for you here in just a moment. Okay, downtown Pittsburgh, again, looking great. Same from the MoDOT camera, 20th and Rangeline. Right now, skies are clear. Here's what we have active. Red flag warnings across the entire area. Absolutely no outdoor burning. Don't flick your cigarette out the window. Don't do anything like that, because with our humidity levels down from 10 to 20%, and those very gusty winds, any small spark could start a large fire that could spread very quickly and become out of control very quickly. On top of that, high wind warnings, hence the red flag warnings. High wind warnings across the entire area through the majority of today as well. We are talking wind gusts 60 miles an hour out of the south, with isolated gusts still possible up to 70. Up to 70. And this is not accounting for any thunderstorm activity we could see. This is just going to be gusty winds. And even after the thunderstorm threat is gone, these gusty winds will continue through the evening and into the overnight hours as well. So we do have a low tornado risk in our far northeastern corners here, okay? Low hail risk across a broader portion. And then same with the wind. We have the low to elevated wind risk, but these hatch marks, though, indicating the possibility of wind gusts of 75 to 80 miles an hour with thunderstorms. Now, this has slowly been moving back to the south and west. We'll not get another update on this until closer to 8 a.m., so we'll have to kind of wait and see if it moves a little further back or if it gets further away from us, which would not be bad. But the reason it could move further back is new data this morning suggests we could get a line of storms about 10, 11 o'clock this morning west of 69 that will then race east very quickly. So this is that line of storms at noon today. And then we could see another round about 3 o'clock in that same zone and develop and race further east. So it'll depend on whether or not we get those storms and whether or not they're able to intensify before they roll east and end up taking part in that significant severe weather outbreak to our east. This morning, very mild. We're into the upper 50s, low mid 60s out there. Highs today, we'll have highs upper 70s, and then they'll start to gradually fall back as we head through the afternoon and evening hours. Again, we're going to break down all this stuff in detail for you with the full forecast, and that's coming up here in just a few more minutes. Elise?
All right, Chris, thanks. We'll see you soon. Well, a brief standoff in Joplin ends with the arrest of a Kansas man wanted for attempted murder. Responding to a call about a fugitive, Joplin SWAT got to the Home 2 Suites Hotel on Rangeline shortly after 11 Thursday morning. Officers determined the suspect, Joshua Ferguson of Cherokee County, Kansas, was inside one of the rooms. After police first couldn't convince him to come out on his own, Joplin SWAT took him into custody. Ferguson is now in the Jasper County Jail awaiting extradition to Cherokee County. Ferguson has been on the run since 2023 for allegedly trying to kill a family member by shooting at them several times. The victim was unharmed. Ferguson was arrested in Webb City in 2023 and made bond, but then violated conditions leading to a warrant. Now, he'd been on the run since until yesterday. And a fatal double crash in Allen County claims the life of a Moran, Kansas man. The incident happened Wednesday night at around 8 p.m. on US 54 when a Ford truck going east was hauling a large bale of hay, blocking the view of the taillights. A Chevy truck behind the Ford rear-ended the Ford, causing it to overturn. The Ford truck went into the ditch, ejecting the driver, 44-year-old Scott Welch, into the westbound lanes of US 54. Welch had suspected serious injuries from the crash. A few minutes later, an SUV was heading west on US 54 and hit Welch, who was still in the road from the previous crash. Welch died on scene. Next of kin have been notified. And O'Reilly Auto Parts in Neosho is temporarily closed after an SUV drove into the building. Neosho police say one customer who was at the counter was rushed to the hospital. Now, there's no update on her condition. No one in the vehicle was injured, and the store can reopen after repairs are made. Well, a police chase from Webb City to Joplin reaches speeds of 100 miles per hour. Now, just before 3 a.m. yesterday, a vehicle was reported stolen to the Webb City police. As officers were responding, they spotted the vehicle and attempted a traffic stop. The vehicle failed to yield and fled east, bringing police on an 8.8-mile pursuit from East 4th and South Main Street in Webb City to 7th in Illinois in Joplin. There, the car crashed into a parking lot and the driver fled on foot. Webb City officers then followed on foot and quickly took the male subject into custody. Charges are unknown at this time. And to be the first to see breaking news, weather and sports, you can download the KOAM News app. It's available free of charge in the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Just search for the KOAM News app. Well, there's a new Freeman Children's Miracle Network champion, two of them actually. Now, the 2025 champions are two brothers with Down syndrome. KOAM's Melissa Alexis has more on their family and their journey.
Everything takes longer and is a little bit harder, but you celebrate it and it's much more sweeter.
Bryce Werdeman's sixth child, his son, named Rusk, was born in 2020, and at birth, he was diagnosed with Down syndrome.
After he was born, it was a big adjustment.
Rusk struggled with vision issues and other obstacles.
So Rusk had congenital cataracts when he was born. We did not know that until he was about 2 months old.
About 2 years later, Bryce and his wife Amanda flew to Serbia to adopt Sutter, who's 7 days younger than Rusk and also has Down syndrome.
The Lord really kind of opened our eyes and opened our hearts to the opportunities to be able to love children, and that every kid needs an advocate, right? And so it began us on a journey.
Their journey led them to Children's Miracle Network.
Pretty quick into it, we just started realizing there were so many needs that the boys had.
CMN helped the Werdemans get the resources both boys needed.
They've really helped out a lot with, especially has been providing them with and the assistance financially to be able to get safe beds for our boys.
The Family Relations Coordinator for Children's Miracle Network says there's a variety of medical expenses they help with.
We help with travel, so we can pay for their gas to appointments in Kansas City, appointments in Oklahoma, St. Louis. We did send these boys to Michigan, so that was very rewarding to be able to send them there.
And now, Rusk and Sutter are this year's Freeman Children's Miracle Network champions.
It means a great deal to us. We're very, very excited.
As champions, the brothers will serve as the face of children treated at the hospital and raise awareness about the ongoing need for donations to support the Children's Hospital. Reporting in Joplin, Melissa Alexis, KOAM News.
Now, to receive assistance, families can reach out to the Family Relations Coordinator at Children's Miracle Network. Receiving help is need-based, not income-based. And that's a look at this morning's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News. The U.S. government could shut down if Congress does not reach a new spending bill tonight. We'll have the details. Plus, a Detroit restaurant provides childcare so parents can spend a little time to themselves. And Chris Warner will have a look at your weekend forecast from the Skywatch Weather Center. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. We'll be right back. Well, topping Nation Watch this morning. Fire breaks out on a passenger jet in Denver. American Airlines flight 10:06 caught fire yesterday evening. The flight en route from Colorado Springs, Colorado to Dallas was diverted to Denver's airport after the crew reported engine vibrations during flight. Now, the fire began while the Boeing 737-800 plane was taxiing into its gate. Emergency slides were activated to evacuate the passengers. An airport social media account says 12 people were taken to hospitals with minor injuries. Now, it's not yet known what the actual cause of the fire is, nor at what point the fire broke out while the plane was taxiing. The FAA is investigating the incident. And the nation's government mail service is going to undergo job cuts in moves to streamline as it works toward more efficient operations. The U.S. Postal Service says it's aiming to pink slip 10,000 postal jobs and use a voluntary early retirement approach over the next 30 days. Postmaster Louis DeJoy notified Congress that the agency will cooperate with the Elon Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency in making the cuts. Now, the Postal Service has undergone major restructuring over the last 5 years, including reducing the workforce and canceling or renegotiating contracts. The USPS has 635,000 employees and lost $9.5 billion last year. And Meta's new fact-checking feature is coming to its social media platforms. The company says it will start testing a user-sourced fact-checking program on Instagram and Facebook starting next week. Now, community notes will be similar to what is used on X, formerly Twitter, which puts fact-checking in the hands of the users. Meta ended its previous fact-checking program in January as CEO Mark Zuckerberg said it was becoming more, quote, politically biased. Now, Meta says users can sign up to test the program, but their community notes will not appear immediately. And Republicans control the House, Senate, and White House. So Democrats don't usually have leverage for pushing back on the Trump administration. Right now, they do, but using it could result in a government shutdown tonight. Amy Kiley reports on the decision that Senate Democrats face today.
I will vote to keep the government open.
Those words signal the federal government might not shut down tonight. The Senate is set to vote on a GOP funding bill today that's already through the House. Republicans need a handful of Democrats to reach 60 votes and close debate. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer says he will be one of them.
I believe it is my job to make the best choice for the country, to minimize the harms to the American people.
But it's still not clear if the bill will pass. Schumer's statement follows his earlier claim that Democrats had the votes to block the measure.
And we should be hell no, and we should use our leverage in the Senate to negotiate a much better deal.
Democrats want to push back on President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans. They want to rein in efforts to dismantle federal agencies, fire government workers, and cut funding from some programs. That's why House Democrats say they oppose the bill.
What voting for this CR does is that it codifies the chaos and the reckless cuts that Elon Musk has been pursuing.
On the other hand, a shutdown could hurt the economy when it's already reeling from new tariffs. Some Democrats also worry Trump could use a shutdown to push even more cuts.
We are in a perverse, bizarro land where we're having to decide between letting Donald Trump wreck the government this way or wreck the government that way.
I'm Amy Kiley reporting.
Now, the GOP continuing resolution isn't the only plan on the table. Democrats are pushing a bill to fund the government about a month to allow time for bipartisan negotiations. And that's a look at some of today's top national stories. Here's Chris with a look at your forecast.
Now we've got a nice look at the Skywatch Storm Tracker. For the time being, it is clear, but that will change as we go through the next few hours. We'll have the latest on our thunderstorm chances and, of course, the high winds we've got across the area when the KOAM Morning News returns.
Well, a restaurant in the Detroit area is offering daycare, or rather night care, so parents can enjoy a date night. Sarah Michaels explains how it works.
I Googled, is anybody else doing this? And I only could have found like some restaurants in California that offered it.
Michael Eveco and I are sitting inside his restaurant, Host Utica. It's been open for a little over 2 years, but most recently, people have been driving in from all over to visit, and it's all because of a new initiative.
We call it Parents Night Out, P&O for short, so whatever you prefer.
Okay. P&O happens on the second floor of Host.
This is the area that we do the Parents Night Out.
On Tuesday through Thursday nights. What is it? Restaurant. On-site childcare.
So it's $8 for the first hour and a half.
The childcare is open for children who can sit up on their own up to the age of 12. Parents must call a day in advance to make their reservation. While their children are here, Michael says CPR-certified childcare professionals will be watching them, and parents can have food sent up if they would like. What do you guys think of the concept?
I think it's awesome because half the time it's so hard to get a babysitter.
I think it's cool, honestly.
These moms telling me they drove in from 45 minutes away.
How difficult can it be to get childcare just for a going out to dinner, a night out?
It's literally awful. Like my family doesn't really babysit. They're all young with their own lives, their own children. So it is very hard. And then we have to pay on top of that.
So a lot of places should adapt that concept.
Now there are security measures that are in place. For instance, Michael tells me that this door is always closed and locked. It can only be opened from the inside. Parents who drop off their children must leave a photo ID and they cannot leave the premises. Plus, you'll see that there are security cameras throughout the second floor.
The most humbling thing is like people come in and like we haven't been on a date since we had kids.
Michael tells me that they have worked hard to keep this offering accessible to many incomes, saying oftentimes he loses money on P&O. However, he says it will remain a win to him as long as he knows he's helping out other parents.
The divorce rate is 50-50 in the U.S. right now, and if I can help lower that a little bit by allowing parents to have a date and not like be disconnected over the youth of their children, then that's what I can only hope for.
Very cool. Now let's head over to Chris for a quick look at your forecast.
Yeah, we're taking a look outside from MoDOT camera 20th and Rangeline. Skies are clear. Things are looking pretty good for now. We do have some big changes later. We'll have a complete look at your forecast when we come back. Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News, 6:23, almost 6:24 on what is going to be a very busy Friday across the area. High wind warnings across the entire region now through late this evening, early tomorrow morning. We are talking wind gusts out of the south that are not associated with any thunderstorms. That could be up to 60 miles an hour and isolated gusts to 70 miles an hour. So we're talking the potential for damaging wind gusts that could bring down small tree branches and potentially power lines leading to some power outages. So something we need to be aware of. That's why we also have red flag warnings across the entire region as well through late this evening and into early tomorrow morning. So absolutely no outdoor burning and absolutely no flicking your cigarette outside or anything like that at all either. The other concern we have is the thunderstorm chances. Red flag warnings are out when the humidity levels are very low. The air is very dry. We could actually get ultimately what are known as dry thunderstorms. Now, it's not something we typically see here. It's something that happens out in the west a lot, but not here. It's where we get the thunderstorm, the wind, the lightning, maybe even some hail, but barely any rain. And that lightning could potentially spark a fire on its own with the dry conditions. So we've got to be cautious about that as well. So about those thunderstorms, well, some of them could be strong, potentially severe. Now there's a low to even just barely elevated tornado threat, just barely clipping us here. The bigger concern goes into hail, which we have a low risk for, and then we have the low to elevated wind risk, but those hatch marks indicate the possibility for thunderstorm wind gusts from 75 to 80 miles an hour. Now this is slowly pushed back south and west across the area. It won't update again until about 8 a.m. this morning, but there is a chance, I would say, based on what I'm about to tell you, that it might back up just a little more. Now I'm not saying we're going to see our severe threat increase significantly. Again, the major outbreak still expected to our east, but we may see the chance for some stronger storms a little further west because we're looking at the possibility of 2 rounds of showers and storms as we go through today. So I backed up the future track because traditionally we started at noon because we're helping you get into the afternoon. Okay, we backed it up a bit. Here at 11 a.m. we talked about between 10 and 1 we get a round of showers and storms that rolls through. could be strong. We'll have to see exactly how that pans out. But see how quickly they're going to be moving about 60 miles an hour. They're going to be out of here in no time. Then we pause for a moment. Then about 3 o'clock or so, in almost the same area, we get another line of storms that could be strong, possibly severe. Now, data that I've looked at this morning suggests that the second line would be more likely to be strong to severe, but either line could produce some strong storms. This one, by 4, here it goes, and by 6, it's also gone. And we're still very windy. I want to emphasize, too, once the storm threat moves on, doesn't mean we're not still breezy. But we do have that possibility of some thunderstorms, and some of those could be strong, possibly severe. So it's something we'll be keeping a very close eye on as we go through the morning. Of course, we'll be monitoring for updates, anything that changes. Since today is the day we get new updates every hour. The model data refreshes every hour, so we'll keep monitoring that for you. Clear skies to start, clouds gradually increasing. We could again see that first round of storms late morning, about 74 by 11. Early highs of the upper 70s, and then temperatures gradually start to fall back. And then again, between maybe 3 and 6, another round of showers and storms. South winds sustain 30, 35, maybe even 40. Gusts to 60, isolated gusts to 70. We head into tonight. Skies will begin to clear, mostly clear overnight, down to about 50, but those south winds still gusting upwards of 45 to 50 miles an hour. Tomorrow, breezy, but not as bad. West winds gusting to 25, cool but seasonably so. Highs near average, upper 50s, low 60s this weekend. Warmer Monday and Tuesday, cooler next Wednesday, and then temperatures warming back up in the second half of next week. That's a check of your forecast. I'm going to send it over to Lisa now with Health Watch.
All right, Chris, thanks. A study on long COVID found more than half of people who developed it have symptoms for at least 2 years. The Barcelona Institute for Global Health also found risk factors for long COVID include being female, getting a severe COVID infection, or having a pre-existing chronic disease. Vaccination reduces the risk of developing long COVID. And viewing scenes of nature can help reduce pain. A study by the University of Exeter in Vienna showed patients reported feeling less pain when exposed to nature or even watching videos of nature. And it's more than a placebo effect. The brain itself showed changes in signals in response to nature. And people who are more nostalgic about the past have more close friends and better relationships. A study by the Taylor Francis Group found nostalgic people tend to put more effort into maintaining their personal relationships. Having more friends and confidants has health benefits too. It lowers your risk of depression or dying prematurely. And that's a look at some of today's top health stories. We'll be right back. Right now at 6:30, Missouri and Kansas wrestle with the issue of raising the minimum wage.
And we've got ourselves a very windy day. We're talking potentially damaging wind gusts and some thunderstorm chances. We'll look at that forecast, get you out the door coming up.
Plus, high winds and dry conditions make a perfect recipe for fire risks here in the 4 states.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Well, good morning and welcome to the KOAM Morning News. It's 6:31. I'm Elise Snowy.
And I'm Chris Warner. It is now Friday, March the 14th, and so it's not a Friday the 13th, but it almost is going to feel like it with everything going on today.
I know.
We started our day with the lunar eclipse. I caught the end of it. I wasn't waking up super early to see it. It's neat. I feel like the phases of the moon are just an extended lunar eclipse anyway.
Right.
I mean, it's just, a month-long eclipse, but it was still pretty neat. Even to catch the end of it was pretty neat. Then we've got the super gusty winds, and then we've got the thunderstorm chances.
A whole lot going on
and all in a short order as well. So let's start first with that look outside in downtown Pittsburgh. Skies are clear for right now, and they'll start to see more clouds as we head through the morning hours. MoDOT camera 32nd in range line also looks pretty good. And here's what we've got. And I'm going to go in detail on everything we know so far, but I want to get you out the door first. Red flag warnings across the entire region today. Do not do any outdoor burning. Okay, don't discard your cigarette out the window. Don't do any of that because we have the conditions that are going to be ripe for rapid and explosive development of fire out there. And so we don't want that to happen. And here's why. We have high wind warnings now across the entire region. We're talking wind gusts out of the south, upwards of 60 miles an hour, isolated gusts to 70 miles an hour, which is going to be bad for high-profile vehicles, period, let alone normal vehicles, and It's going to help contribute to the potential spread for any fires out there. So please, on a day like this, do not do any outdoor burning. Humidity levels are at historically low levels out there as well, 10, 20% in some cases. So, the severe threat. We have very low tornado risk barely clipping us. We have a low hail risk out there, and then we have a low to elevated wind risk with those hatch marks indicating the possibility of thunderstorm wind gusts of 75 to 80 miles an hour. Now, the thunderstorms pose their own problem. We talked about how the humidity levels are going to be very low. We could be getting something that we don't see often in our area, but it comes up commonly out west, especially into the desert southwest. It's what's known as a dry thunderstorm. We get the lightning, we get the wind, in some cases might even get the hail, but very little rainfall. And that means that lightning itself could potentially spark a fire as we head into the afternoon today. So there's a lot to keep an eye on. 2 possible rounds of storms. One this morning between about, say, 10 a.m. and then 1 p.m. And here it is by 11. This rolls through. And then this afternoon, another one starts by about 3, and it's out of here by 6. And either of those could potentially be strong to severe. So something we do, again, have to monitor. Quick look at those temperatures. Very mild start to the day. Upper 50s. We're seeing a lot more low to mid 60s across the region. So again, a very mild start to the day. Already breezy. Highs upper 70s. Then temperatures slowly falling in the afternoon. And those 2 possible rounds of storms. And again, the wind 60 miles an hour. Isolated gusts to 70. We're going to again go over all of this in detail with you here in just a few more minutes. Elise?
All right, we'll see you soon. And as Chris said, the entire 4-state area is under high wind advisories through tonight. Now, those high winds increase the risk of fires. Nicolette Zingara shows us some of the precautions you can take to decrease your risk of an out-of-control fire or damage from the high winds.
Grass and brush fires are keeping local firefighters busy, and conditions that fuel those fires are expected to get even worse tomorrow.
We're going to have fires. It may be in Ozark County or it may be in Polk County, but there's going to be fires. Be prepared.
The ongoing drought, dry and dormant plants, and extremely high winds are a dangerous combination.
We've had a couple of fire days so far this year that resulted in lots of fires, and the conditions were not even as bad as they're going to be tomorrow.
Meteorologists at the National Weather Service are preparing for numerous hazards. The fire danger is one thing, but the strong winds could reach severe criteria, even without the presence of storms.
So since we usually issue severe thunderstorm warnings, if thunderstorms are producing winds that high, that usually means that they could cause some sort of damage.
Nelson recommends taking a few minutes to clean up limbs that were loosened during previously windy days, and bring outdoor decorations and gardening equipment indoors. They can become projectiles.
There are a few preparations that you can take for your vehicle to avoid starting a fire. First and foremost, make sure your tires are fully inflated. The rim barely touching the ground can become a spark, which turns into a brush fire. And avoid parking on dry grass, because a hot tailpipe can be the ignition that a fire needs.
So we had a small roadside fire due to a piece of metal coming off a trailer, and it skidded down the road and set the grass on fire.
I've seen many fires in my career that started from someone flicking the cigarette butt out the window.
Any fires that form will be hard to keep up with. The International Association of Wildland Fire says a good rule of thumb is fires spread at about 10% of the sustained wind speed. With surface winds between 30 and 40 miles per hour, that's spreading fire at 3 to 8 miles per hour. This can bring the fire from far away to your doorstep.
A lot of the fires that we're seeing get into buildings are from small grass fires in the yard that burn up against the house. And it don't take much, as dry as it's been.
Well, Chief Stewart says to try to limit dry vegetation near your house and to be prepared for the many hazards that may come later today. And debates are underway concerning the minimum wage on both sides of the Missouri-Kansas state line. Now, the Missouri Supreme Court heard arguments this week for a legal challenge that would overturn a recently passed proposition. Now, in November, Missouri voters passed Proposition A, which raised Missouri minimum wage to $13.75 in January and guaranteed sick leave for hundreds of thousands of workers. Several business groups, including the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry, filed a legal challenge. Now, their primary argument is sick leave and minimum wage are separate issues that violate the single subject rule for amendments and propositions. Now, those against this legal challenge say Prop A was supported by voters at the ballot box.
We always say let business decide. Workplace policy decisions are really left between an employer and an employee and should not be mandated by the government.
The free market does not mean free of rules. It is we all decide what the rules are and then we compete freely within that market. And so if the minimum wage goes up, those are the rules.
Now, the Missouri Supreme Court is expected to release a ruling within the next month. Now, in the meantime, state lawmakers introduced a bill that would overturn the sick leave provisions and modify the minimum wage provisions. And as the fate of Missouri's minimum wage is left to the state Supreme Court, Kansas lawmakers are working to raise theirs. Now, currently, minimum wage in Kansas is $7.25 an hour. State House legislators introduced a bill proposing to raise minimum wage to $15. A similar bill in the Senate would raise minimum wage to $15 with further increases each year to be based off the cost of living. Now, both bills were referred to committee. And that's a look at our top news stories coming up this half hour on the KOAM Morning News. It's Friday, and that means Shannon Becker joins us in the studio with his big three stories of the week. Plus, Chris returns with another look at your Friday forecast. We'll have the latest. You're watching the KOAM Morning News.
It's going to blow away.
Oh, I didn't even see that. Welcome back. We've got Shannon Becker in the studio with his big three stories of the week. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing
We're
today?
just talking about the wind, how crazy it's going to be.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the big three stories this week live and local, what's happening where you live. It was a police pursuit. Happened yesterday morning. Oddly, I was up in the middle of the night for another story, and I heard a police pursuit coming out of Webb City. It was a vehicle that had just been stolen, and they called 911 in Webb City. Officers were responding, and they passed the car. So they turned back around. It was about 100 miles an hour. It went 249, eventually down 7th Street, and then ended at 7th
about
and Illinois.
8.8 miles.
You saw that. I mapped it. Incredible. So sadly, this person's car that got stolen, obviously some major damage as they crashed there at 7th and Illinois. The male suspect attempted to run on foot. But they caught him super quick, very quickly. Our number 2 story, live and local, what's happening where you live. Yesterday in Neosho, a vehicle drove into the O'Reilly Auto Parts. And there was a lady at the counter inside, and she was hit by the SUV. And she rushed to the hospital. There's no update on her condition, but non-life threatening, they say. That is way back there. Look at, almost to the manager's office.
Yes.
It really drove very far back there. Now, they were closed for the day yesterday as they were securing the building. I anticipate they'll be open today with a temporary door. Because they are a busy, busy location. And our number 1 story, live on local KOAM News Now. Look at this. Watch for the car. Oh, we already missed it. All right, so it'll play again here in a second. So this is in a Webb City yard, northeast of the airport. Lady there blowing some leaves in the backyard, and watch here. The anticipation.
I know. There it goes. It just flies by.
I don't know how fast it was going.
Could you imagine that lady, though?
I know. Well, especially with all those leaves to blow. But anyway, it did cause some property damage. Webb City Police were looking to identify the car. The car would have some damage. It's a Toyota. And so when a wreck like this happens, you have to repair, if you do it, you have to repair the fences and fix people's things. So that's why they're looking for who was driving that car as it left the scene. And then our bonus story of the week, we've been talking about it all morning. And we can't reiterate enough, fires. And the high winds, these are historic winds, they're saying. It's going to be 15 years since we've had an event like this, not only in Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. These are just some of the fires that we've covered here in the last week. No one has been injured, but there have been quite a few structures that have been lost. They're right now even continuing to fight fires overnight on the edge of the Mark Twain Forest. the Cassville area, also Seligman, so that's a little bit further south into Berry County. So when Chris said it earlier, don't discard your cigarettes while driving. And also, this is interesting, don't let chains drag on your trailer.
Oh, that's very
they can spark and then cause fires. So you'll hear about fires like all along the road, like for a period. That's someone's chains that were dragging from their trailer most usually.
How interesting.
Very interesting. So be careful out there and hold on to your toupees.
All right. Sounds like a plan, Shannon. Thanks so much for being with us this morning. Stick around. We'll be right back. Well, here's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door. A brief standoff in Joplin ends with the arrest of Joshua Ferguson of Cherokee County, Kansas, who was wanted for attempted murder. Ferguson has been on the run since 2023. He's now in the Jasper County Jail awaiting extradition to Cherokee County. And a police chase from Webb City to Joplin reaches speeds of 100 miles per hour. Webb City officers spotted a stolen vehicle and attempted a traffic stop. The vehicle fled east, starting an 8.8-mile pursuit. The car crashed into a parking lot and the driver fled on foot. Officers quickly took the male subject into custody. Charges are unknown at this time. And Freeman Health System in Joplin announced their 2025 Children's Miracle Network champions, Rusk and Sutter. Now, the brothers will serve as the face of children treated at the hospital and raise awareness about the ongoing need for donations to support the Children's Hospital. And that's a check of today's top headlines, the news you need to know before you head out the door.
And we've got high wind warnings and red flag warnings across the entire area. No outdoor burning and south winds gusting to 60, isolated gusts to 70. Highs today, upper 70s. Then we have the 2 possible rounds of storms. Some of those could be strong, possibly severe. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Then we'll clear out a bit overnight. The winds don't stop. Okay, don't think that just because the storm threat passes, the winds are done. That's not the case. Down to 50 tonight. Winds tonight gusting to 45. Still out of the west tomorrow, gusting to 25 to 30. Seasonably cool this weekend, back to the 70s on Monday.
Coming up today at noon, we're making lemon chess pie in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
And of course, your morning news continues on KOAM with CBS Mornings.
Or you can switch on over with us on Fox 14, where your only local morning news continues. This morning, the Children's Miracle Network selects 2 local brothers to represent the organization.
Plus, Shannon Becker back in the studio with his big 3 stories of the week. It's going to wrap it up for us for now. Of course, if we get any severe weather between now and noon, we'll be right here tracking it, and we'll otherwise see you back here Monday morning at 5.
And we'll see you today at noon.